Hello world, my name is Garrett Broughton. I apologize, I've lost my voice this past week, but I'm going to try to make a video anyway for those that couldn't make it to the meeting on Saturday. And I want to share with you today with everything I've learned in the past week, a lot of good stuff on singing. So this is lesson part 2. Let's get started. Here are the areas that I'll cover. Ways that we learn how to sing are some proper health tips. Where are my vocal cords? There's a key lesson that not a lot of people talk about in terms of awareness and how to imagine where they are so you can get better at it. Finding your voice type, your diaphragmatic support, vibrato, I'll go over that, some warm-ups, a chest voice, and we'll go over some stage fright, and then some more areas to cover, which I think will be interesting. So that's all what I'll cover today. I'll do a slide on each, and hopefully you learn something. By the way, what I did to learn this is I found a really good coach named Ken Tamplin. He's a good vocal coach out there on YouTube, and he had a playlist of about 90 videos, and I went through and watched all 90 of them, and I picked probably the top 10 that I thought were really had a good technique, and I listened to them over and over until I really started to understand them. And so I referenced him here on the bottom of this presentation, and I suggest you actually go to his channel and check out, because he's much more advanced. I won't actually be singing, unfortunately, my voice, and plus I'm not really a great singer, so I'll preface with that. You don't have to take my word for it. I'm just offering this information for free and hopefully inspire you to go to the right coach, and hopefully one day I'll become a better singer in the process. So let's begin with ways to learn. My method is just to collect as much information out on YouTube as possible, similar to what I did with Ken Tamplin. Now, there are different styles that you can choose, and some I think he may not even recommend that you jump around, because it would be learning different languages. However, I think it's okay to, when you're first beginning, because you don't really know where to begin. So just collect a lot of information. You don't actually have to embed bad habits, but at least you start to learn on what might be your technique or style that you like, or a coach. So do some searching out there and just collect as much as you can. And don't get too carried away. A lot of people want to jump in and sing that crazy song and belt it without really being careful on taking care of your voice. I was actually ill, so I didn't jump right into it, but it's very tempting. So if you want, you can go to a coach. The research I did, they're anywhere from $50 to $150 an hour, but I usually like to learn on my own for free. So that's a method you could do. The technique that Ken talks about is called the open throat technique, and I'll talk a little bit about what it's about. And he also talks about the speech level singing, which I'm not too familiar with that. He doesn't recommend it. But most importantly is just practice, but make sure you are aware of how you're practicing, and then you unlearn a bad habit. So perfect practice makes perfect. All right, so what are the steps? This is really good information that Ken shared. And this applies to anything in life. There's 4 steps. The first step is unconscious incompetent. And that's when you're starting off. You really don't have a clue of what you're doing or where you're going. You're just there because you think or you want to learn. The second step is competent or conscious incompetent. And that's where you start to begin to know what you want, but you don't really know how to get there. And then the third step is conscious competent, and that's where you start to know what you want, and you're starting to get there, and you know how to get there. You just need more practice. And then lastly, where we all want to be, which can take a year or so in singing, is unconscious competent. And that's where you basically just do it without even thinking. It's very natural. It's second nature. So give it some time, some patience. You'll notice improvements after 3 months, 6 months, but really give it up to a year to start to notice a big difference. It doesn't happen overnight. So I thought it'd be useful. I did some research on just learning about the vocal cords and where they're at. I didn't actually post a real picture because it might gross some of you out, but I suggest that you go look it up because it's really good to know where your vocal cords are right here. And then if you're getting tension or if you're pushing them up, this is all good information. So over here, you can see this is where they're open and then they're closed. And then it's right there in the larynx. That's your vocal cord. And then you have your trachea, your throat, and then your tongue. It's good to know where your tongue is located. And then your hard palate and your soft palate. Your hard palate is up at the top, and then your soft palate's in the back where it's a little more squishy. And then over here, the image on the right shows the vibration of what happens when you're singing or even talking to your vocal cords. They're vibrating as the wind goes, as the air gets pushed through them. So it's good to just be aware of where your vocal cords are and what they're doing so you can really adjust them when needed. So how do you find your voice? These are some of the common questions people are going to ask. I don't know what I'm supposed to be like, and I don't know where I'm supposed to go. Well, finding your voice is just like any other sport. You take a style and you look at your greatest influences. For example, maybe the Beatles. And if that's a artist that you like that's in your range, start there and just start to practice. And then take a little bit from another artist and find the style that works for you and bring them together and bring all these together. I wouldn't really say this is like learning multiple languages at a time. It's just figuring out the styles that work for you, putting them together, learning it, and adding it to your skill set. And then over time, you're going to build your own uniqueness, and then you'll be able to share that with others, and that will be you. So other interesting information I found that people should be aware is what are the different range types? And some may classify you in a certain range. I may sound very low like a bass right now, but you may be within an octave and you want to go several octaves outside of that. For example, Mariah Carey can go 5 octaves, or other singers, they have a really tremendous range, and that takes practice over time. But you can see in this diagram, just to visualize, that in the green area, that's your typical bass, and then the yellow is kind of that variation of range that you get. And there's other ones out there, but these are the common, the 3 for female, and I found 4 for the male. And even children have their own name for a range. So here's some tips on keeping proper nutrition. Now, I had a cold, and I've been trying these, and some of them really work. For example, if you're trying to prevent a cold, have some zinc lozenges, or maybe even Emergency that has zinc in them. That's really good. Vitamin C chewables, like Airborne or other areas. Probiotics, those also help prevent colds. That would be similar to what you'd find in yogurt, but they're actually like a $50 bottle you can buy. That's better than getting sick and having to go get antibiotics later. A couple of interesting other areas. I didn't put everything out there, just some things that I think that might be helpful. But again, take it for what you think is helpful and just try it out on your own. Putting raw garlic on toast, having your multivitamins every single day, and then vitamin D. Everyone or D3 is deficient in vitamin D, so it's important to get those. Okay, let's talk about some techniques. So the first one is diaphragmatic support, and that is basically your breathing. So first thing I learned is just by sitting down like I am right now, I'm losing 25 to 30% of my breath support. So ideally I should be standing, especially when I'm singing or even practicing. So that's the first thing you want to do. The next thing you want to do, okay, let's talk about diaphragmatic support. This is the most important part of your singing. In fact, 70 to 80% of your singing comes from your breath. So as most people would say, like the gasoline to drive your car. one thing I've learned is just me by sitting, you lose 25 to 30% of your breath because you're cutting off air supply. You might be choking your abdomen or bending over, having bad posture. So ideally, you want to be standing when you're singing. Some even say you can lay down, but I would say standing, get that proper posture because it really helps you, even in other parts of life. So the diaphragm, that is what is right here at the bottom of your ribs. And when you breathe in, it actually goes down and acts and gives more air capacity. And when you breathe out, it goes up and pushes the air out. And one of the things you can do is practice this. So if you can see this, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And do that 30 times. And just practice that as part of your warm-up. And just get really comfortable with breathing. And it'll come in your lungs, but really concentrate here on your diaphragm. That's where all the power comes, or the lower chest voice. Okay, let's go to another topic called vibrato. Vibrato is a very fun part of singing. It's the music signature of a note, you could say. So think of like a Whitney Houston, or somebody that sings in that little variation, oscillation in that note over a long note. And there's some different opinions on this. One is a vibrato has semitone over on the top of the note, and the other one is a semitone under the note. And what Ken suggested is actually it's natural to go underneath, like a half note underneath, and that's more relaxed. But there are singers that go above the note. And it's just a really fun thing to learn. And it's important to get that breath support because you're pushing the air, and you need that continued air supply to provide that vibrato effect. And there's 6 different vibratos. And if you're interested, go check them out. He talks about the technique of all 6 and how to do them. It's really cool. I think vibrato is a really fun thing to be unique in your voice. Okay, another warm-up exercise that he really has a signature is the ah or the la, and that really gets your tongue out and keeps it from sticking back there like the doctor wants to see your tonsil. Ah, and he does a scale, and you can practice this. This is a really good warm-up you can do every single day, and that's ah, 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 ah. I'm sorry, I can't do it today, but it's a really easy to scale to do it. Check it out. Okay, next topic we'll talk about is mixed voice. And mixed voice, here's some of the technical terms in there, but that's basically your passaggio, and that's a passageway between your chest and your head voice. So the analogy he used is like your forearm or maybe your leg, and if you're throwing a ball or if you're kicking a ball, let's say we're throwing a ball, and you gain your power from up here. So this would be like your chest voice, and your elbow is your passaggio or passageway, and your forearm would be the head voice. So if you need to throw something, you're going to gain all 3 of these, but your passageway opens up. That is your elbow. So that's your mixed voice. And we have different call registers. So if you want to know more, you can check that one out or comment on the video and I'll help you out. Okay, chest voice. The analogy was used to compare like building a house or a foundation. Pouring the foundation is your chest voice. And really practice on this before you go and build extra rooms onto your house. That would be more like your head voice. So it's really important to do that. And the other analogy is if you're a high head voice, like a soprano, you can really practice your belting in a way as if you're going to shout at somebody, such as, "Hey, that guy, he stole my car." You're going to yell that out. It's not a natural sound, but that's what you would use when you're belting. Okay, let's talk about another topic. that I thought was interesting, and that is, if you're just beginning, what about stage fright? Or even if you're a shy person, how do you get out there and practice? Because there's a lot of fear and doubt in our minds. And singing is even harder than public speaking because you're vulnerable up on stage. Well, here's some of the fears that you might go through is embarrassment. Is it going to hurt me? Not physically, but more emotionally, because the term used was somebody's moment in laughter is your humiliation for a lifetime. It may stick with you if you let it, but you can't, because you're going to fail and you just have to keep trying many, many times. So let's go some of the fears that you might think of. What if everyone hates me? Or what if I forget the lyrics? Or what if I can't hit that high note or the low note? What if my voice cracks? What if I sound like I am today? I'm sick. Or what if no one shows up? So all these are very common. Really, the two things that you have to remember is, number one, if people are taking time out of their day to watch you audition, then chances are they're going to want to see you succeed. They're there for entertainment. So even if you fail, they'll be supportive. And secondly, is just go in expecting that you make some mistakes and this is not your first time. Because like I talked about earlier, you want to be in that unconscious competent where it's just second nature. And over the course of 1 or 2 years, you'll have done it so many times that you won't worry about, even if you trip on stage or you mess up, you'll be able to correct it. And these things will be second nature and very comfortable and confident in yourself. Okay, new other topics that I may cover in future lessons that I think they're really interesting that you might also want to learn about. That's exercises for your head voice, how to prevent cracking and croaking in your voice, and tension. Tension is one in your tongue, in your throat, in your body, and other areas. The open throat technique, how to prevent a nasal voice in your mask, and increase your vocal range. These are all good areas that you could spend a lot of time practicing in. So as I mentioned, go check out Kim Tamplin. Here's his link. He's got 30 years of experience and over 400 YouTube channels out there. Check him out. This is a coach that I really found interesting. He also does personal coaching over the internet if you want to do that. But for me, I'm just sharing this information out there, what I've learned from week to week, and hopefully you got some information out of it and learned. So if you liked it, please share or comment on the video with any questions, and I hope to see you next time. Cheers.